Well, it's Steve Arts 89. Well, I'm continuing on with my gay movie marathon, and I've left some of the best for last. I was trying to go chronological, but I just ended up keeping some of the best films for last. And I'm up to The Sum of Us, the 1994 film, starring Russell Crowe and Jack Thompson. Some of the best casting ever. It's probably, I think, one of the best Australian films ever made. And not just because I'm biased, because, it involves a gay character. But it doesn't play up to the Australian stereotype for the international audiences, which most Australian films do, where they basically do the bogan thing, which is basically would be the American equivalent would be the white trash, and that seems to be the identity that the international audience thinks of as Australian culture, that we always sort of push, and those films are the ones that get funded, not the real films about real Australian people like myself. This film is very simple. It was originally a stage play. It's basically a little story about love. This father and son living together after mother has died. The son's gay. He's I wouldn't say straight acting, but he's not he's masked. He's not femme. He's a bit clueless. His dad is very accepting, because his mother was gay, and she lived with his auntie, he used to call her auntie, for 40 years. And he had that example which made him look at love differently. He was very happy with his wife. But yeah, they ended up just the two of them, sort of two bachelors together. And the film starts off with Russell Crowe's character going out to meet a guy, and he brings him home. And the father, of course, interrupts in a very well-meaning way, trying too hard to be accepting. And it does scare the boyfriend off. Greg Polson, I think his name is, the actor. He's not very well cast. They got Jeff and Harry right. Harry's the father, Jeff is the son. But they didn't really get Greg, the boyfriend, right. He's just not much to write home about. But he's not in a lot of the film, and he's a good actor. He just, it's the only weak point of the film. He's casting. Well, he ends up leaving because it just feels a bit too domesticated, because he has a father that doesn't accept him, and he feels a bit bad about that. And also, I think it takes a bit of the thrill out of it, because we're doing something we shouldn't be doing, because his dad, Harry, accepts it and is so encouraging of them having a relationship or dating or whatever. So he leaves. Jeff gets a bit down. The father meets a woman. He proposes to her, and she basically says, "Can we wait 6 months?" He knocks it down to 3. He finally brings her over to meet Jeff. When she finds out he's gay, she has a bad reaction, especially when she sees how accepting he is of it. She leaves, and Harry has a stroke out the front of the house, and he ends up paralysed except for 2 fingers. Can't speak, can't do anything. All he can do is move his 2 fingers. Now, Jeff rigs up his wheelchair with a little buzzer so he can say yes and no. It's very Captain Pike from Star Trek. And one of the things about the film, which I can actually handle, normally I can't bear this, but they break the fourth wall and talk to the camera like they did in the play. And he's afraid now that Jeff will never find love, because he's going to spend so many years taking care of him, which he does not want. He doesn't want to be a burden. He doesn't want to stop his son from meeting someone. Doesn't want him to be an excuse to not meet someone, because Jeff isn't that secure, which he doesn't understand. But eventually they're shopping in Coles, and he sees Greg, and he tries to get away without seeing him. But Jack is buzzing with his buzzer, and they eventually talk, and he actually invites himself over because he's. They showed Mardi Gras, which was quite well shot and covered on the news at the time, and that was when it first. This was '94, when it first started to become a big thing, a big international thing, and started to be televised on the ABC. And that was the year of Priscilla and a lot of things. A lot of progress, all hit about mid '90s in Australia, and he invites himself over because he's been outed because he marched in the parade and it was on the news, and his dad saw it. His dad kicked him out. So now he's lived by himself. He's had enough of guys just trying to hook up. He wants a real relationship, and he's now ready, basically. So he invites himself over, but Jeff kind of turns him down because he's afraid that he's not going to be able to handle him taking care of his father. And Jack is, of course, not happy. He's buzzing and buzzing and buzzing and takes his hand off it, and then he keeps on buzzing and he pulls the cord out and wheels him off because he's just afraid that it's not going to work out, so he just doesn't even try. But then later on, and Jack, he does talk to the camera even though he's paralysed. When he breaks character, he's like talking like normal, which leads to a couple of funny scenes. But he eventually, Jeff takes him for a walk in the park, and I probably should bring up now that they really feature the story of the grandmother, and there's a really devastating scene. And I'm doing this review for a second time because I was bawling when I tried to talk about this the first time. They were together for 40 years, but as they got into their 80s, they became unable to take care of themselves, and they were separated. One went to a home and the other one went to stay with one of the parents, one of the kids. And it's such a heartbreaking scene to see these two old ladies literally pulled apart, and one is on the balcony waiting, watching as the other one's driven away in a car looking out the back. And he realised that how much they loved each other and how much they risked to be together. They were pretty much out, as much as you could be back then. And they'd always have the kids over, and they were really great with the boys and everything, playing football and stuff. One of them was very sort of stiff and sort of sitting back, while the other one was really sort of fun. And to see them separated and to know that part of that must have been homophobia because they wanted to separate them, I don't see why they couldn't have been kept together. It's just devastating and heartbreaking, and you can see that he learnt how to value sort of that sort of love and to sort of, a life partner and that. And he's really worried that Jeff's not going to find someone. But when they're walking in the park, he sees Greg, and he says, Dad, I'm just going to leave you here for a second. He goes off and talks to Greg, and they flirt, everything goes well, and he basically invites him over, and he comes back to his dad, and he's like, hey, I bumped into Greg, and I got bold, I asked him out, and he said he'd come over, and he said he'd bring his toothbrush, and he's getting all excited and making plans, and his dad starts crying, and he's like, oh, what's wrong, he's like, they get, the buzzers confused with the yeses and the nos, and he thinks he doesn't want to see Jeff for a minute, and he's like, oh, for God's sakes, obviously, I want you to, they get that sorted out, with the yes for no, and then he's like, oh, thank God, I thought you didn't want him to come over and that, and it's just so beautiful because he's crying because he's happy that he hasn't missed out on finding love, that taking care of him hasn't stopped it from happening, because like I said, I was afraid that he wouldn't be okay with that, but he's not bothered, and he's going to come over, and then the last thing he says is, oh, gee, I hope he shows up, and Harry just rolls his eyes because, for God's sakes, because he still isn't secure, even though, Harry knows it's love and they're going to live happily ever after and that, and it's just such a great little film. I was crying in the middle of the film remembering the end of the film because it's just so well acted and so well played. It's so subtle but has, a lot of emotion to it. The acting's great. The casting, except for the boyfriend's great. Joyce, she comes over, I forgot to mention, she does actually come over to see him, and she has a real hard time, particularly since, she realised what she missed by having the reaction to Jeff and all that. And when she leaves, and her daughter's played by Rebecca, I can't pronounce her name, who now is in Neighbours, and she just says, there's no fool like an old fool, because she realises what she's missed and what she screwed up. But Harry's okay because he just wants Jeff to find someone, and he does. And it's just such a beautiful, wonderful film. Probably one of the best Australian films because it doesn't try to be Australian. And I love it. And every time I see it, it gets me emotional, makes me cry. The only other thing I don't like about it is I always thought they filmed the gay club scenes in Stonewall, which I've been to a lot of times, but they actually filmed it at the Prince of Wales, which I don't know if I've ever been there. They filmed Priscilla in the Imperial, and I've been there. So I now want to go find the Prince of Wales, but I'll probably never go to Sydney again, so who knows. But it's supposed to be a 5-minute review, but I got through it without crying. I cried so much the first time. It was, I couldn't help it, and my face was getting red because I had a bit of shaving rash, and the tears were actually making it red. So it was very embarrassing. I'm like, no, I have to do it again. But great film. If you haven't seen it, see it. If you have, let me know what you think of it. I think it's probably one of the best Australian films ever made, and just a really great film about men and love. And it was also the first time I'd seen a gay male portrayed as just a regular guy, not camp, not over the top, not stereotypically gay, and it was quite revelatory to realise that I could be gay and not have to be that stereotype. I don't have to be that to be gay. He's not straight acting, it's not fake, he's just himself, and a lot of gay men are like that. They're just men who love men. There's nothing wrong with the other side of that coin, but you know, both sides exist, and you know, they're both as valid. But yeah, I'm gonna go, otherwise I'll just keep talking because I love this film. Bye.